my point is that the more interesting of the two is the Clark Kent side of things.
Yeah.
You have more potential with the Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Because, I guess they probably got away from writing it because everybody's like, oh, Superman's so strong. But really, back in the day, that was a lot of it. Superman being Clark Kent, going to somewhere to investigate something, and they try to murder him or something, but they can't kill him because he's Superman, or something goes wrong. Superman saves a bunch of people.
Haven't had that restraint and knock it down.
Right. So to try to like, have both identities in juxtaposition is the interesting thing. And now they're just like, who could we make? Because Dan Jurgens came up with Doomsday back in the 90s. So now it's like, who can be stronger than Superman? And now it's all about Superman's son, John Kent.
Yeah, see, I haven't followed any of that. I saw initially when he was Superboy, and I actually liked the Superboy Robin, or the Batman's son and Superman's son Robin. I liked the series they did, and then that's the last I really saw. And the next thing I know, he's an adult, and it's Son of Superman.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that one's. And you talk about Batman, and he's not your particular cup of tea, but they've kind of painted himself into a corner with Batman where he's in the same basic boat. Batman can't lose anymore, right? So from a comic standpoint, everybody's gonna go, bananas if Batman gets captured again. He can't really lose. And so I think, people are gonna still buy Batman. Everybody thinks Batman's cool, but I think in my opinion, he and Superman are in the same boat in that regard, which is, unless you have a talented writer or a good idea, you're right back into that. Well, what do you write about him? Like, who's a real challenge for Batman? He's got, all the gadgets in the world. He's the superhuman martial artist and all these other things. So he can't lose. And if he does lose, your fans riot.
do you think that that's why the DC movie universe has struggled?
It could be. Well, I think part of the reason the DC universe struggled is because they decided they wanted to be dark.
Well, I think it's twofold. I agree with you. I think one, they tried to, but I think it's because they were trying to be different and the same as Marvel. They were trying to rush to get the group together, the Justice League, like Marvel did Avengers.
Right.
But Marvel took a decade to build up to that movie.
And the DC movies also didn't have the level of direction that the Marvel movies did. The Marvel movies had Kevin Feige directing everything, like every aspect of one singular vision. Whereas DC movies,
I think the biggest problem is the Marvel movies are comic books. They took the comic book and turned it into a movie. Like they look like the movies. They feel, like a comic book. They feel like the comic book. The stories are literally from the comic books. Like I already kind of knew a lot of the storyline because I was such a big comic nerd and had read the storylines, but I liked it.
Right.
Whereas DC made them darker, not like the comic books. Tried to turn the comic book into a movie and change it instead of it being a movie about, it's like a movie about a comic book instead of a comic book movie, I guess. Right. And I think that was an error.
Yeah, and I think some of that I think they made because Batman Begins did so well, because they tried to ground everything in reality. And I think that they were like, hey, this was really successful. Let's just ride that pony.
Yeah.
They didn't understand that the reason that the Dark Knight trilogy was dark was because it was about Batman.
Right.
And you can't really do that with Superman and the other ones because,
And then, the Wonder Woman movie comes out and, it's set in sort of a darker time period, but the Wonder Woman movie out of the batch, I think, was probably the best.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really liked the first Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Hated the second one. I didn't enjoy it at all.
It wasn't very good.
Yeah, the first one, though, I thought was great.
Yeah.
I thought of the DC movies, I think Wonder Woman, in my opinion, was probably Now, I really enjoyed Man of Steel, but it's just because I'm a Superman geek. But I thought that it was too dark. I thought they should have made it. I just didn't like the way. I grew up just like you with the Christopher Reeve Superman, and to me, that was Superman.
Right. Yeah. And he always will be till the day he die. That's going to be our Superman.
And it was so bright and hopeful, and he looked the part. And I like. I can't even think of his name now. Superman.
Oh, Henry Cavill.
I like Henry Cavill as Superman.
I think he's a great Superman.
He does a good job.
Yeah, I think the movie around him could have been a little stronger. And, Josh and I have complained about this till I've turned blue in the face, but I just really didn't like the portrayal of Pa Kent. And I also don't know why they keep wanting to kill Pa Kent off, because in the comics he was still alive, So I'm like, why do you guys keep murdering Pa Kent? Even in the Christopher Reeve one, Pa Kent dies of a heart attack.
Yeah, he's running up the thing with him and dies.
And it was like, why do they keep killing Pa Kent?
I think he dies in Smallville, too, doesn't he, eventually?
Yeah, he dies of a heart attack.
Yeah.
And he's got a bad heart.
But you know, like that version that they put in Man of Steel, that's not Pa Kent. Pa Kent's all about hope. You know, and Pa Kent would never tell his son, I don't know if you should let those kids have died in that bus. Like that's not. It's the whole point of Superman being the way he is that he was raised by truly good, salt of the earth people with good values that, you know, always tried to do the right thing. And that the minute I saw the first trailer that he said, should I let him die? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, I'm not gonna like this guy as Pa Kent. Everything else I liked, but that.
So aside from that, what did you think of the Green Lantern movie? The
Ryan Reynolds one. The Green Lantern movie. So the Green Lantern movie, it's like they try to do what Iron Man did, which is Iron Man didn't have much of a script, and they were just, you know, making it up on the fly. The Green Lantern movie also had no script. Ryan Reynolds just signed on because he'd been turned down for Deadpool.
And Ryan Reynolds also tries to forget about the Green Lantern movie.
Right.
Well, so surprisingly, I liked the Green Lantern movie.
I thought it was okay.
Because it had the Green Lantern Corps. One of the first times you've seen, I think it's the first time you've seen them in the movies. And I was a big fan of that. I always liked Green Lantern. You know, to me, he was, I don't want to say like a poor man Superman, but he was very powerful, and I liked the idea of like intergalactic police, like the idea of
that's the part of it that's
and that it was mental strength, his will.
Yeah, he's just that determined. I mean, the weakness against Yellow was kind of silly, but other than that, it was pretty good. I thought the movie was all right. I think a lot of, myself included, a lot of fans didn't like the portrayal of Parallax in it because he's like a huge deal in the comics that came up much later down the line. And they just like threw him in and then they tossed him into the sun. So I just really that didn't work out very well.